My name is Maya. I'm the founder of C8 Labs. A quick gist about what I do there is we've been developing software for search and rescue capabilities, so enabling offline access to AI and ML. During my day job, I'm a platform engineer. If you get the reference, you get the reference. I was not prepared for this to auto-advance slides, so we're going to see how this goes. There's a few slides I like to use for transition, and so who knows how 15 seconds of empty slides are there. There we go. This talk is very much based on a topic I did back in 2016, which dealt with software dependencies across an entire organization. The software we build today depends on a large number of packages, both open source and closed source. We have the application programming interface that everybody's pretty much used to. That's the interfaces in code that we're talking to. Most people don't know about the binary interface. The binary interface is the relationship between your package and the underlying operating system or runtime. But our software doesn't just depend on its initial set of dependencies. Those dependencies depend on more software, which depends on even more software. All gets defined in package JSON or package lock JSON, or pick your dependency manager of choice. The unfortunate thing about today is as our dependency tree grows, we lose sight in terms of what systems we depend on, which tools and packages we need the most throughout our ecosystem. And we end up in these really complicated graphs where the relationships between components aren't as immediately obvious to our engineers as they once were. The term for this I like to use is transitive dependencies. I think a lot of people like to use the term indirect dependencies. But these systems quite often lead to bloat. They can often cause things like duplicated dependencies existing in your tree. Maybe it's a simple little time library, which wouldn't be as bad. But maybe there's things like concurrency libraries that you depend on, or RPC mechanisms. Do you use GraphQL, or do you use gRPC? There's a lot of different things that can cause more and more bloat to your software ecosystem. Beyond just having duplicated dependencies, you also have the problems of determining which version of a dependency you might rely on. This is quite often referred to as the diamond dependency problem. For small cases like the one outlined in blue here, it's a relatively simple case of, well, we just have two problems we need to reconcile. But as we get larger and larger, like the green example, and there's even an even larger subgraph in here that I didn't highlight, it gets increasingly more difficult to reason about which version of this software do we need to actually pull into our ecosystem. Hence the welcome to hell concept, pardon the French. Once we have a fairly sizable dependency tree, that's when things like vulnerabilities start to leak in through our ecosystem. Vulnerabilities come in the shape of things like software dependencies that pull in malicious code, or even things like depending on a library that doesn't use a supported version of your licenses. I actually just came across a few components the other day that use ELv2, which is kind of concerning from a software organization standpoint. But all of these components lie in your code base, and you just don't know about them. I think for most of us recognize the problem of decay when we think about the XKCD comic, where there's a big, tall tower of blocks that are all held up by this one little block at the bottom. Well, that same thing happens in your ecosystem. Something further down the chain might start to get old. You don't stay on top of patches as much. You don't upgrade versions. You don't deal with CVEs that are lingering in your code base. And that all has a detrimental effect on the one root system that you are developing on today. And the last component that I want to talk about is hijacking. So companies or malicious actors can sit down and hijack your software by either using a typo squatting of a dependency or actually gaining access to the account owner's system and publishing a malicious version. We've seen it a few times in industry. And the last thing I'm going to close on today is that this problem doesn't just exist in our software dependencies, but rather also in our organization dependencies, right? As we build teams, as we build and structure the different parts of our company, we often end up with these indirect or direct chains within our we often end up with these indirect change within our org. And as a result, we get this very long tail of changes that require, months, if not weeks, if not months, to be able to change and put things through. You can find me online. I have a QR code up there that goes to my link tree. I'm also at my.sh. You can find me on a whole bunch of different socials. But Thanks to y'all for your time.